Right. This week, we're learning about the death of Sora. That's how the Torah portion starts off. Surprisingly, the name of the Torah portion is called Chaye Sora, the life of Sora, even though it begins with her passing away and her husband Abraham looking for a place to bury her. But that's a question for another place. Here we're talking about the burial place of Sora. But Sora was buried in Hebron. That's where she's buried today. And in a place which is called Marat Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah. The word Machpelah means to be doubled. And Rashi says it was a double cave. There was one cave in front of another, and back of another, on top of another. There's different opinions where exactly it was, but it was a double cave. And that's where Sora is buried. And later on, when Abraham passes away, he's buried there also. And of course, Yitzchak and Rivka. And Yaakov is buried there with only Leah. And Rachel, she's buried in Beit Lechem. She's buried in a different place. But also there's another couple that's buried there, and that's Adam. Adam and his wife are buried there. Because Adam and his wife, they were supposed to be the first Jews, but when Adam ate from the tree, so he sort of confused the whole situation. But nevertheless, they are buried there as well. Marat Machpelah. All right, so what is this idea of Machpelah? Something is doubled. What's going to be doubled? That's what we have to understand. All right, let's put that on the side a minute, and we'll understand what is this idea of being doubled and what does it relate to us. So we see another time that's mentioned this idea of being doubled, and that is there's a song that was written by the Arizal that is sung at the Shabbos table. Shabbos table. There's a lot of people that sing this song every Shabbat. Every Shabbat. Even in Chabad, where we don't sing, there's not songs written in the Siddur. You know, there's a lot of groups that they have set songs that they sing at the Shulchan, at the Shabbos table. But Chabad doesn't. But we sing Chabad songs, Nigunim, Chabad songs. But there's two songs, actually three. The words are written by the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, and we sing these songs, right? There's one in the evening, and one in the daytime, and then one in the afternoon, the last meal. And they all have these sort of mystical meanings to them. So in the daytime, the song we sing has a verse that goes, Yegala lon tame, the bisrei sarname. Yegala lon tame, the bisrei sarname. That's in the nighttime, I think. It's not in the daytime. All right, I meant to say it. Yegala lon tame. Anyway, okay, so Yegala lon tame, there's revealed to you the reason. The reason for the 12 breads. They are contained in the name of God, Elon is Bishmei, Kafila Uklisha, doubled and weak, doubled. So here we have the idea of being doubled. Yagalon Lintame, Bisre Saname. There will be revealed to you the reason for the 12 loaves of bread. And what are the 12 loaves of bread? There are 12 loaves that were brought on Shabbat. In the Holy Temple, they would bake 12 loaves of bread before Shabbat, and then they would put them right before Shabbat, and they would exchange them and take out the old loaves of bread, and those would be eaten, and these 12 loaves would remain there the whole entire week. It was on a special table that had 6 layers to it, and on each layer there were 2 of these special loaves of bread. The bread were shaped like in the shape of a U, something. It was called the lechem apanim. It was called the face bread. Face bread. Lechem apanim. Okay, so there are some people that have a custom. We don't do it in Chabad, but there's a lot of people that do have this custom, to have 12 loaves of bread on the table on Shabbat. Because in Shabbat, in the Holy Temple, there was 12 loaves of bread. Okay, so there's a secret to this. Now, what is the secret of the 12 loaves of bread that are specially eaten on Shabbat? They're in the name of God. Kefila uklisha means doubled and weak. Doubled and weak. What does this mean, doubled and weak? Kefila means to be doubled, and klisha means to be weak. And what's the name of God? The name of God, there's a lot of names of God, but the name of God is, the main name of God is, starts with a yud and ends with a hey. Yud and then hey and then vav and then hey. That's the main name of God. All the others are aspects of God. This is sort of the the main light of God is in this name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and that somehow or other is connected to these 12 loaves of bread. Okay, one of the things about the 12 loaves of bread is that they were eaten. They were eaten, and that's one main feature of Shabbat, is the meals of Shabbat. This song that we sing from the Arizal, this song that we sing is sung at the meals of Shabbat. It's a very special thing to eat. It's forbidden to fast on Shabbat. You have to make a meal, 3 meals on Shabbat. So the eating of Shabbat is very important. Okay, the eating in the rest of the week is also important. If you don't eat, you get weak, you get sick, even worse, right? When there's a drought, when there's a fast, eating is very tremendously important. Now, the job of the Jewish people in this world is to make the world holy. Or more exactly, to show that the world already is potentially holy. When Adam ate from the tree, he covered this over, but the world still remains potentially holy. And we just have to reveal it. So that's what's hidden inside is somehow or other the main thing now. And we just have to reveal it. Now, when Mashiach comes, one of the main accomplishments of Mashiach is that he'll change people's priorities in life, and they'll start to relate more to what they don't see. Because what we see now is the covering. So there'll still be a world, but we just interpret it wrong. The world will be the same, but people will be different. We'll look at the world in a different way. We won't see ourselves so much in everything. We'll see the godliness. We'll see the amazing miracle that everything exists and that we exist and that we're not alone or just the products of a meaningless nature. Rather, everything is, nature itself is infinitely meaningful. And we'll see that. Okay, one of the ways that that's done is through the commandments. And one of the main commandments is Shabbat. And the eating of Shabbat is one of the things that really brings about this revelation in the whole world. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Okay, that's the revelation is now weak and doubled. We'll see what this means. Okay, let's go. Behold. Now, this is a little bit Kabbalistic, what we're going to learn over here. This is a little bit sort of difficult, but I have faith in you. You can do it. Here we go. There will be revealed to you the reason of the 12 loaves of bread. This is talking about in the days of the Mashiach. Hine, behold, miloi hey, filling up the letter hey, he is mehei acheret, from another hey. The he bechinas, this is called kafila, this is doubled. Kanoda, like it's known. Me'inyan marat machpela. Marat machpela. Marat machpela is the hey acharon, the last hey of God's name. The name Ban. Oh, what is this name Ban? Maybe, let me see. Let me just write this down here for you here. There are 4 letters in God's name, right? Here we go. 4 letters in God's name. There's the letter Yud. There's the letter Hey. There's the letter Vav, and there's the letter Hey. Here we see. See, you see? Yud, Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav. Okay. Now, each one of these letters is pronounced as it is just a letter alone. You can't pronounce it. But there's no, if you want to pronounce it, you have to fill it up. You have to write something else. So, for instance, Yud, we'll write all the letters Yud, Vav, Daled. That becomes the filling up. Now, the Hey, you can fill also. It has to be filled. You can fill it up. How do you pronounce the letter Hey? Hey with a Yud, Hey, or maybe Hey with an Aleph after it. Hey, also Hey. Or you can write two Heys, Hey, Hey. Oh. So let's fill it up with the letter Hey. Now, why are we talking about this? Because this is not just regular letters. We're not just talking about literature here. We're talking about the creative forces that creates the world. So in a way, these names and words are more real than the world is. Money is real to you. Well, the name of God is what creates the bank and creates you and creates the money. So it's infinitely more important. We just don't feel that there's a creator. But our goal is to, yes, feel that there's a creator. So filling up these names becomes very important. And in fact, there's four basic, what's called aspects of God that are signified by how you fill up these names. I think we talked about this before. There's one of them that adds up to, if you fill up the Hey with an Aleph, you put an Aleph, right? So you put Yud and then Hey fill it up with Aleph, and Vav, you fill it up with Vav, Aleph, Vav, and Hey with an Aleph. If you count all these numbers together, they have the numerical values. Yud is 10, Vav and Dalet is another 10, 6 and 4, so that's 20. Hey, if you fill it up with an Aleph, then it's 6. Another 6 is 12. So you have 32. And you have, yeah. Is that right? Yeah. 1 second. Hey, Aleph, that's right. You've got here 32. And Vav, Aleph, Vav comes out to be, that's right, yeah. Vav, Aleph, Vav comes out to be Vav, and another Vav is 12, 13. So 32 and 13 is 45. That's the name Ma. So one of the names of God, Ma, also Chachma. But that's not what we're so interested in now. Now we're interested in filling it up with Heys. So here we fill up the Hey with a Hey, and the last Hey with another Hey, and the Vav we fill up with a Vav, another Vav. So these are the filled letters. Okay, so the filled letters, if you add this up, this comes to the name 52. 52. Let's see. Here is 20. Hey and Hey is 30. Hey and Hey is another 40. Vav and Vav. Not filling it up. Vav, Vav. How do you fill the Vav up with another Vav? That's 12. Comes out to be 52. So that's let's go. And so it says, if you fill up this last letter, Hey, with another Hey, Hey, that's how you pronounce it. That's called kafila, doubled. Every single one of these letters is doubled. The Yud is 10, and there's another 10. So that's 10 and 10. 2 Heys, 2 Vavs, that's kafila. Everything is doubled, but especially the last Hey. That's called doubled. That's the thing of Marat Machpelah, the doubled, the doubled, what's it called? Cave. This is the last Hey of God's name, of the name Ban. That's what we said before. That's this Hey. Hey, Hey. Here is the last letter of God's name. Now, again, we're talking over here about the creative forces that are creating me and you right now. Now, you feel you're being created? Well, you are. And you're being created by God's name. Me too. So you're not alone. The whole world is being created by God's name. There's different ways, different aspects of God's name that do the creation. But here we're interested. This is what's called the lowest aspect of God's name. Nun Beis. Okay, that's Nun Beis. Okay. Now we can understand. Let's understand, what is eating? Now we can understand. Well, let's understand. We want to understand this hay, the doubled hay. What's doubled? What does it mean? Let's understand, why do we eat? Why can't God just create us that we don't eat? Not only that, man is higher than animals. Why don't we live from the word of God that's inside of us? Well, why doesn't that just enliven us? That should. Why do we have to eat food? We have to eat potatoes and meat and bread and things like that. Those are low things. What do we have to stoop down to that for? Let's just only be concerned with God. Not like the angels. The angels are just concerned about God. They're burning up all the time. That should be with us also. That's, man is higher than rocks or plants or animals. Why do we have to stoop down to eat those things? Right? That we need water and salt, and those are minerals, and we need the plants and bread and things like that's plant and animals. We eat the meat. Why? Let's understand, why do we eat? Kihine, behold, ikar chila, the main thing of eating, liot, is to be key, because mina machal, because for food, nasa chela v'dam, becomes fat and blood, flesh and blood. But dam, and the blood, who nefesh, is our soul. V'chayot adam, and the life of a person. Shemakabel hakaved, that the blood, the liver receives blood, makes blood from the food. And then it sends this blood to the heart, and to the brain. The talat shlitim inun alma. There are three, what's called rulers over man. Kavda, liba, v'mocha. The liver, the heart, and the brain. And without food, none of them work. Food is like gasoline to a car. Makes the whole thing work. You can have the nicest, most fancy, most modern car. You have to have gasoline or electricity or something. You have to make it work. By means of this, mitala ochel, the Michael, the food gets elevated. Shenasa mimenu leiv hamoach adam, becomes the heart and the brain of a person. By means of this, mitchazek libo b'mocho, his heart and his brain become strengthened. B'avodas Hashem, in the service of God. Shebelibo, in his heart, bislavos karish ve'esh, like flaming fire. If a person is weak and he doesn't eat, so he's confused. His mind is all weak and confused. It's very difficult, almost impossible, to think about anything, especially about serving God. But you're thinking about food. If a person eats a little bit something, then at least it calms his mind down. It says, by means of eating food, it gives us strength that we can go to work, we can do things, but we can also serve God. We can pray, we can think, we can get excited about God. If we eat, we don't think about ourselves so much. It gives us energy that we can think about something else. Our heart can flame up we can think about God and come to realize how good God is. And then we start to act like human beings. Our heart becomes inflamed like fire to our Creator, with thanks, with gratitude, with love. With the power of the food that we ate. That without food, a person becomes weak. Holy. Also a person's brain, it becomes stronger. To contemplate Hashem, in the greatness of God. Okay, so when you eat food enables you to do animal functions, right? Like animals. Animals also eat. And when they eat, what do? They act like animals. They think about themselves. Human beings, the same thing. You eat, you can do normal things, right? You go to work, you can talk to your friends, you can, fix your car, you can whatever it is, do things. But you can also do something unique. You can take the food and you can make from the food godliness. How do you make from food godliness? You think about God. By means of eating, your mind becomes strengthened, your heart becomes calmer, and you're able to do something which only human beings can do. And that is contemplate the greatness of God and get excited about how amazing it is that God is creating me. How real God is. That's the whole idea of refining. Shemina Michael, that from the food, Nasa Adam becomes a human being. And like I say, the lions when Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, so the lions became calm. Why did they become calm? The nature of a lion is not to be calm, especially when the lion is hungry and there's a nice piece of flesh over there that he can eat. They don't become calm. They become very excited, and they become very, how do you say, carnivorous, and they start eating any meat that's thrown to them. Which that's what happened. We know the story that after the Nebuchadnezzar threw Daniel into the lion's den, and they didn't do anything. And the advisors of Nebuchadnezzar says it must be that the lions are not hungry. Somebody must have fed them. So he said, well, let's do a scientific experiment. They took out Daniel, threw the advisors in, and it said that the lions ate them up in midair. They were so hungry. Their bones didn't even touch the ground. So they were tremendous. Why was it that lions didn't act like lions? Why didn't they? Why did they go against their nature? The nature of a lion is it was. It says because Daniel acted like a man. Daniel was thinking about God. Daniel was thinking about the creation, the creator. He was thinking about what's his purpose in creation. He felt that every instant of creation is a miracle, and the lions are also part of the miracle. And God is creating everything, something like in Noah's Ark. Everything was quiet over there. All the lions, all the giraffes, they didn't eat each other, kick each other, whatever, because they felt the holiness of the situation. Maybe it was because of Noah, because of God. But nevertheless, when man acts like a man, he thinks about God. That's unique about man. If a man doesn't think about God, doesn't take God into, then he's no different than an animal. It's a clever animal. It's a, how do you say, hairless ape, like they say. Okay, so therefore, God puts the Jews into the world in order to refine the world. What does it mean, refine the world? To show the world where it really came from. Right? To show the world there's really a creation. I use this example all the time. Maybe you're tired of it. I guess I don't get tired of it. Is you find a picture in the garbage. This actually happened to somebody, by the way, but not as dramatic as I make it. But you find a picture, a nice picture in the garbage. It's just sort of rolled up. You unroll it. Hey, this thing looks pretty nice. I'll put it in my house. Puts it in the house, and the wife says, "What do you put that piece of garbage on the wall for? Put it in your room. You want to put it in your study." Puts it in the study. After a couple of weeks, whatever, months, years, somebody comes in and says, "Wow, where'd you get that picture from?" Says, "I found it in the garbage. My wife hates it." Says, "Just 1 second, 1 second. Let me look over here. Look on the back of this thing. Wow, this is a genuine, whatever it is, a genuine Picasso. This picture is worth at least $100 million. What do you mean? He revealed who the author was. As soon as he reveals the author, you realize this cannot be just a little child in school wrote just arbitrarily. It must be this was done with tremendous intention. He had a reason, he had a purpose, he had this or this. All of a sudden, everything becomes tremendously valuable. Well, that's the same thing with the world. Refining the world means we reveal who the author is. Who is the author of the world? Who's creating the world all the time? That the world is infinitely, every detail of the world is infinitely more valuable and precious and alive than finding a Picasso painting. It doesn't mean the Picasso paintings won't be worth that much money. I mean, I imagine they probably won't be worth that much money because I don't think people will be that interested in those pictures. But who knows? Maybe it could be. One doesn't preclude the other one. The fact is that the purpose of the Jewish people to be in the world is to refine the world. Refining the world means to show what the source is, to make clear what's really going on over here, that the world is being created. that says that's on Shabbat and the weekdays. On the weekdays, we eat the food. We take the good out of the bad. We try to take the good out of the bad. We try to remove the bad from the good. Like in this picture, he cleans it off. He says, well, there's has to clean it off overhead in the corner. It's all covered up. There it is. It's Picasso's signature. And by cleaning up the world, we get rid of all the bad things, all the egotism, and we reveal who is the creator. That's the idea of eating. When we eat food, the food is food. When you eat food, you eat it and you feel good. Who would dream that the food really comes from God? Who would dream that we can use this food in order to serve God better, to think about God, to think about the truth, to think about what's really going on? Says that's called borer. Borer means that when you eat food, so you get rid of the bad part of the food, which is the egotism. You're supposed to get pleasure, but you're not getting pleasure for your sake. You're getting pleasure because God creates man that he can get pleasure, and now you're getting permissible pleasure. Pleasure is permissible. It's a good thing if you use it properly. Music, art, whatever you want to, science, if you enjoy it, it's wonderful, but it has to be used according to the way that God wants. That's the thing of eating. Eating especially. There's nothing more animalistic than eating. Animals eat, people eat, protozoas eat, everything eats. Dog eat dog, right? Man eat man. People eat. That's the nature of all creation, all creative things. They eat, right? All living things that they eat. But man, especially the Jews, are chosen to go out of this cycle of egotism. And instead of taking the world and making more world, we can take the world and make it into godliness by getting rid of the bad, not thinking about our own personal pleasures that we get, and yes, thinking about the good, about the godliness which is in it. So we have to, that's called borer. Borer means removing, separating the bad from the good. All this being motachol is only in the weekdays. B'Shabbos, and Shabbat, borer asur. On Shabbat, it is forbidden to, how do you say, to take the bad from the good. And even to a certain degree, it's forbidden to take the good from the bad, to a certain degree. Right? You can take the good from the bad only in order to eat it immediately. If you're going to use it for later, you can't. But anyway, borer is forbidden on Shabbat. There's 39 general categories of things, types of work that are forbidden on Shabbat. You can't write, you can't tear, you can't sew, you can't kill, you can't bake bread. All these things you can't do on Shabbos. And one of the 49 categories is borer. You're not allowed to take the bad from the good. Separate the bad from the good. On Shabbat, it's forbidden. So if so, good. Okay, but that's the thing that we do. It says also spiritually. What does it mean spiritually? Achila, the food that we eat on Shabbat, yoter elyona. It hasn't got so much bad in it. Because good is drawn from above. We don't have to elevate the food so much from below. Rather, God blesses us. The whole thing of Shabbat is that God is revealed more on Shabbat. The world is less world on Shabbat. What's the idea of Shabbat? First of all, Shabbat is only for the Jews. Non-Jews are not supposed to, they're not allowed to keep Shabbat. They're not allowed to make up a day for themselves. To keep Shabbat on Wednesday or Thursday. They're not allowed to do that. Forbidden, because Shabbat was given only to the Jews. Why was it given only to the Jews? To show that Shabbat is a godly day. It's a special day. It's it's not just a day of rest. It's not just a day you don't do anything. And the rest is supposed to be, we rest because God rests. What do you mean he rested? God did not occupy with the creation. Shabbat is creator day. Shabbat, the creation, the world is not dominant. What is dominant on Shabbat is the creator. And this was given specially to the Jewish people, just like God chose one day. God chose the land of Israel. God chose the Jewish people. And he chose Shabbat. All of those choices are one. If non-Jews keep the Shabbat, then that confuses things. Because the fact is Jews are different. Jews are different. Jews have an obligation to serve the Creator all the time. And how do you serve the Creator? By revealing godliness in the world, in the physical world. That's what we're working on. We're working on the world. The world is not the way it's supposed to be. Even when God created it in the beginning, it was not the way it was supposed to be. It had all the ingredients, but it was not the way it's supposed to be. Adam was supposed to put the thing together. Instead, he made things worse. And we're fixing it up. Okay, one of the ways you fix it up is in the weekdays. You fix up the world by eating and doing it not for selfish reasons, only to serve God. On Shabbat, the eating is in a different way. And Shabbat is in God's way. It's in a Shabbat way. The world is not so dominant. You're not taking the bad from the good so much. It's more revelation of good from above. Like it says, Al titanag al Hashem. Then you will get pleasure on God. And we're talking about nowadays. And the Mashiach is going to be a much higher level of Shabbat, but that we're going to get to in the end. Because see, if it says, God, you created me back and forward. Achar v'kerem sartani means achor means last and first. You created me. Man is the last thing created, a Maisa Bereshit, and the creation of the world. Shamaychala, the food, kamoshu lamata, like it is below, biridato, when it came down here, what's called in the breaking of the vessels, and I'll explain that in a minute. Adamu bebechinat kodem, man is first. Shamaychal hu mitbarer, food is lower than man. The food is refined by means of man. Avo b'shorsho, but in its source, lamaila hu me'olamato, the food comes from the world of Tohu. Okay, this is a little bit different than what you usually think. Usually we say that man is the last and the first. The man is the last thing created, but he was the first thing that rose up in God's mind. And here we're saying it a little bit differently. We're interpreting this a little bit differently. God is last. Man is last and first. What do you mean God is last and first? Food, as it is now, when it comes down into this world, in the breaking of the vessels was a process of creation by which the good in this world was covered over. There was the potential to cover it over. God wanted it to be that way. So there was the potential to sin, the potential to go against God. That God wanted to be in the world. He didn't want man to do it, but he wanted man to have free will, to have the ability to do it if he wanted to. That ability, that potential, in other words, that fact that God is covered, that was caused by what's called the breaking of the vessels. Okay. Hine Adam, a person as he is before the food, nowadays, me and you, we're higher than the food. The Adam. Food is vegetable, animals lower than us, we're higher. Of a b'shorsho, but the food in its source, so we're first, but in the source, we're before the food. We're first, and the food is last. But in the source, food is higher than we are. Because food comes from what's called the world of tohu. Lifnei melech malach levnei Israel. Before there were kings, we'll get to this in a couple of weeks. Before there were kings in Israel, it says there were the kings of Esav, Edom. But afterwards, Yimloch v'Yomos says afterwards, all these kings. You'll see in that this was in Parshas Vayishlach. It says that he ruled and they died. This is talking about this breaking of the vessels, right? The breaking of the vessels we talked about. The breaking of the vessels originates from what's called the level of reality, which is called tohu. The Yamas v'Yimlach. Okay, so let's not get too confused with this going on. In this world, we don't see godliness. The world is confused. It says that's not exactly the way that God wanted it, but that's the way it came out. God wanted that there should be the potential to do bad in the world, but he didn't want people to choose bad. He didn't want people, but when people do choose bad, so the world becomes more and more thick. Where did this potential to do bad come from? It says that before God started creating the world, before the 6 days of creation, so there was a whole process, a pre-process to create the world. This is before there was time, before there was a process. One of the processes by which God created the world in the miserable way that it is now is that he gave the potential to do bad. That potential is called the world of Tohu. The world, it's an aspect of God, Tohu. It means basically separation. Separation, non-harmony. That's why it's called Tohu. There's no confusion. Something like an orchestra before it starts to play, it warms up. So all the instruments are just, blasting away. The highest and the lowest are going fast. Every instrument is doing the ultimate what it can. Right? Ultimate tuba, ultimate bassoon, ultimate this. Right? But it's good, and the instruments are doing the maximum what they are, but there's no harmony. That's the world of Tohu. The world of Tohu is pure godliness, all these godly aspects of God, God kindness, God this, but there's no harmony. That's the way that God wanted it, and he broke this world of Tohu purposely so that all of these vessels, what's called of Tohu, these aspects of Torah should come tumbling down lower and lower into the world. And that's what's called the aspects of Torah says they ruled and they died. And then after this, but nevertheless, that's where the bad comes, the selfishness in the world. That's where the selfishness comes from when we eat food, when we do things. Anything you do in the world can be used two ways. You can use your car to show off, to drive fast, to go against the traffic, whatever you want. But you can do anything you want to with the car. Or you can use it to do good things. You go to work, you go to places to help people, right? Wherever you take a hitchhikers to tell a person, you see the person's in need, you take them, you can do good things with everything, or you can do bad things. Good bad things. It says the source of bad really comes from a higher source than man. The source of bad comes from a higher source. And what we're trying to do is to return all the confusion back to its source. That's what it says. The source of food is really higher than the person who's eating it. We have the power to make order, to put everything back to its source, but the source we're trying to return it to is higher. Because that's why food enlivens us, why we get life from food. And we receive food, we receive life from the food. Because the food is because the food, and one way is the last thing, right? It's lower than us. But man was really the last thing that was created. Food was created before man, right? The plants, they were created, on the third day, God made plants. Shabbos on Shabbos, so that's the whole rest of the week. The whole rest of the week we eat in order to elevate these sparks, which are in everything that we use, everything we do in our car, in our food, in our money, and everything. And everything, there's the potential to do bad and the potential to do good. And we use it to do good. What determines what's bad or good? The Torah. That's the rest of the week. There's this sort of battle that we have to fight with ourselves, not to do things in a selfish way, but to do things in a good way. To do things in an honest way, in a caring way. That's the rest of the week. Shabbat, but on Shabbat, that's the time of the elevation of the worlds. Mit'ala, Michael, the food gets elevated like it is to its source. And there's drawn down life, la nefesh, to the soul, milamayla lamata, from above to below. And that is by means of these 12 loaves of bread that were in the holy temple. And that's why there was such a thing as a holy temple in general. And what did they do in this holy temple? What did they do? They ate. They slaughtered animals and they ate bread and they ate meat. What type of a holy temple is that? What type of a holy temple should be a place where you go and there's like this harp music playing in the distant background, and it's really quiet, and everybody there's no noise whatsoever, right? And everything is placid over there. And there's these priests that are standing there very, the austere, and they're just sort of looking up at the sky, so they're looking straight ahead. And that's not what it was at all. You went to the holy temple, and there were animals there, and they were slaughtering them, and there was blood all over the place, and the priests were running around, and they were eating the meat, and they were burning it up on the altar. They were burning up the altar, and they were running around with these little skirts on and everything. It was just like pandemonium over there, right? So they're eating, and one of the main things of the holy temple was eating. It says that there was the altar ate up the sacrifices, and there were some sacrifices that also the Kohanim, they ate also parts of it, and there were others that all three, also the one who brought the sacrifice, the Shlomim offering, the ones who brought the sacrifice, they also eating, everything was being eaten. But one type of eating they had was the 12 loaves of bread. And these 12 loaves of bread, they were changed on Shabbat. And they were eaten on Shabbat. That's the thing that says that a tzaddik, a holy person, eats not for his body, but for his soul. And what is the soul of a person? The soul of a person is his responsibility. His responsibility to God. There's two types of food. One of them is the sovei nafsho, to satisfy your soul, to satisfy the purpose why you're here in the world, to refine the world. The bait, and the other one is bet and Rishayim Techsar, and the other one says that the stomach of evil people is always missing. The Sovea Nafsho, to eating in order to satisfy your soul. This is the life of the soul, which comes from above. And Bet and Rishayim, that's what it says, that the stomach of evil people, this is Rishayim, that means eating in the rest of the week. Al Yidei Achilu, by means of food, we take away from the forces of evil. It says we take away from the forces of evil all the energy that they're swallowing up in the world. Because in every food, there's desire, which that comes from bad, and by means by means it becomes refined in the body of a person, and becomes blood, and it comes to the heart and to the brain, and you use your heart and your brain for what God wants, mitapech latov, it becomes transformed to good. That's in the weekdays, by means of chizuk alev v'moch, b'avodas Hashem, by means of thinking about God, serving God. That refines the physical world, and that's the reason that the Jews are here, to refine the physical world, to take the food. By means of this, this is the weekdays. You take from the selfish forces of life, which are in the world, in the food, which is zelu mazeh, which is in the opposite side. That's what it means, that the stomach of the evil people, selfish people, is lacking. What does it mean? It's lacking, namely, we take away from the forces of evil, we take away from it the life and the good in the world that they swallowed up. And it says, Umibidno Yorisheno Kale, that from the stomach, and it was from the forces of bad, that when we work on it, that God takes it. Yorisheno, God takes inheritance of it. Well, it's just a little bit more. Behold, the eating in the weekdays, this is aware of, this is in the way that we just talked about before, that you have to fight a battle against yourself. Who liyos betem rishayim techsar, that the stomach of the evil people, and others, we have to take away the good from the bad. But eating on Shabbat is not raising things up from below to above, taking the good out and elevating it to its source, but hamshacha milomayla, drawing down godliness from above. The sovea nafsho, to fulfill our purpose in the world because of the food. The food suddenly becomes a holy thing, like it was in the temple, like it was before it was created, before it fell down in the breaking of the vessels. Okay, we'll stop here. And this is okay. What are we learning about? Eating. What could be more not mysterious than eating? Right? Everybody eats. It's a big deal. Animals eat. It says, no, there's a huge mystery involved in eating, especially Jews. That's the reason the Jews came into the world, is the secret of what is eating. To take from the physical world and to use it for what God wants and not for what we want. Of course, a lot of times it could be what we want is what God wants, right? But it should be, we should want things because that's what God wants. Why do you want a family? Because God wants you to have a family. Why do you want to be rich? Because God wants you to be rich. Of course, not to fool yourself. Why should you have a family? So you can educate your children that they should also serve God. Why do you have money? So you can give charity. You can help other people. You can do good things. Why do you eat? There's the Rebbe, eating, you just eat to just, I'm hungry, I eat. It says, no, big mistake. The reason that you eat, the reason you're put into the world hungry, is because you're here to refine the world. And eating is one of the things, maybe more than anything else, one of the most, mixed up things there are in the world is eating. That in eating is pleasure. And this pleasure can be used either selfishly or for God. That's the reason why we're here, to make this choice. So in the weekday, the choice is very hard because there's not much God revealed. But on Shabbat, godliness is revealed, then the choice is very, very easy. It's much easier for us to take the good out of the bad, because on Shabbat, the day is already holy and it reveals. We're going to see that coming to the Mashiach, it's going to be even more. But how this is related, so that's how it's related to the 12 loaves of bread. The 12 loaves of bread, this life force, godliness, which is on Shabbat, it comes into the world through these 12 loaves of bread. There's also what's called 12 different permutations of God's name. Each month has a different permutation. There's a book called Bnei Yisachar. There's also in Kabbalah books that talks about this also. But that's the 12 loaves of bread on Shabbat. They bring this blessing down into the world. And these 12 loaves of bread on Shabbat, that's the secret of the last hay of God's name. That's how we started the class. The last hay of God's name. And that's going to be the secret of doubled, which we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's go to learn Yom Yom. Let's just do this. Okay, gotta go like this. 1 second. For some reason, it doesn't turn off over here. But we have some questions. Let me see. Questions. Jacket. Okay. We'll see. I see this jacket thing really is an issue, huh? Okay. We did this before. 1 second. Stop share.